I'm Megan, and this is Jennifer, and we're going to be giving you a brief overview of how you can transition your fan fiction to seasoned writing.
And both of us are CS majors, but we're both creative writing / English minors, and we've both taken some courses at Cornell, so. Okay.
So the first topic that we're going to touch on today is just some common cliches that we see a lot in all writing, but are especially prevalent in the fan fiction genre. So people often resort to cliches because they've seen them a lot in other literature, and it's an easy way to move your plot forward and to add a little drama. And a lot of times I see cliches carried out in unique ways or with a twist, in ways that I enjoy, but a lot of times I also just see them carried out in a very cliched way, in a way that really detracts from the story.
I agree. I think even really great writers sometimes fall into the trap of using common cliches very often. And I think it's because not only is it like an easy way out, it's what people are comfortable with, and it's easy for people to kind of extrapolate from the common cliche. So just to give you some ideas of cliches, so we have a sin count, and we have a list of common cliches. So
and keep track of the sins that you've committed as we go through these.
Exactly. So keep like a count of how many you've committed, and in previous times that we've taught this class, we've probably gotten most people to say they've done like 7 or 8 of them.
Okay. So don't be ashamed, but be a little ashamed.
Okay, so the first cliche is starting your story with waking up.
Using all of a sudden or surprisingly.
An excessive use of flashbacks.
Smirking, like just the word smirking anywhere in your story.
Both of us, that's kind of a trigger for us. A matter of time or lost track of time.
Little did they know.
Love at first sight or any type of love triangles.
Having characters with vague, dark pasts.
A main character that doesn't realize she's beautiful, but she's beautiful.
Main character who's adopted or an orphan, looking at you, Disney.
And finally, flawless characters that have maybe one flaw.
And there's one cliche that I think we missed here, but it's over-description of characters' eyes.
Yeah.
This is especially something I see in a lot of fan fictions.
Alright, so I don't know, you guys can tell us what your sin counts were?
Well, I used to write fan fiction in middle school. I think I've been guilty of all of them. So.
Us too, for sure.
Yeah. I've never written fan fiction. I made an attempt once and I realized I wasn't good at it, so I stopped.
Was one of these the
I'd
first thing
probably go 4 or 5 of them within a page.
Great,
yeah.
Great. Okay. Yeah. But on the bright side, common cliches, a lot of people use them because it keeps people interested. You know that this is what people are going to be wondering about, or this is going to kind of drive my story. But there are definitely better ways to do it, and we'll definitely touch on that.
And the reason things are cliches, of course, is at one point that they were original and good ideas.
They used to be really good ideas, and then, yeah. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to jump into dialogue, you want to start?
Yeah, so, one thing that someone told me once that has really helped me with the way I write dialogue is that don't write something that nobody would say, and don't write something that anybody would say. So I think don't write dialogue that nobody would say basically just means keep your dialogue realistic to the point where it doesn't take the reader out of the story, and when they read it, be like, no human would ever say that. So we have an example here from 50 Shades of Grey, which I think is a great trove of horrible writing. So we have, sometimes you're so closed off like an island state. And this is an example of something that no human would ever say. And it really takes you out of the story. I think what people really struggle with more than that, because most people are good at writing realistic dialogue, because most people talk a lot. But one thing people are bad at is writing dialogue that anyone would say. So that's dialogue that doesn't move the story forward and doesn't give you any information. So examples of that is yo, what's up? Or yeah, sounds good. It's things that people definitely say a lot. They're definitely realistic, but they don't push your story forward. And so I like to think of dialogue as seasoning. It's good to put a little bit of it in your story, but it shouldn't be the main component of any story.
I completely agree. I think in one of the creative writing classes that I took, an intro one, there were people that wrote stories that were almost entirely dialogue. And I think if you're going for some that kind of theme and you're playing it off well and it kind of fits and it kind of like melds into your story, it's okay. But I think generally you should definitely have like a good blend of descriptions and dialogue, just because, especially for like big novels and like you know, deeper, I guess like deeper and longer stories, it's much better for you to kind of like season your work. And yeah, and I definitely think when it comes to some of these lines that no one would ever say, it's definitely, yeah, you can kind of come up with your creative little details and try not to be, and try not to use like really common descriptions, but definitely try to keep it on a down low so that like your readers don't get lost in your writing. All right, and then yeah.
Oh yeah, this is just a fun one. A lot of times when I see people writing, I see people really not wanting to use the word said. Like they really, you find yourself writing a scene with a lot of dialogue and you're like, oh, you said so many times, I better jazz this up. So you can go on, Jennifer.
Okay.
So if you find yourself at this page ever, I advise you to just turn back. Said is one of those words that when we're reading, we really don't notice it. And so it's absolutely fine to use said. People aren't going to be distracted. What people will be distracted by if you're like, hello, she screamed. Or using smirked as a dialogue tag, I advise you never use that word.
Definitely. I think a lot of people, you can do a lot of different techniques by using like actions and other things to kind of follow up your dialogue, but definitely don't be afraid to use said. I totally agree that when you're reading something, we tend to gloss over said, and it's something that kind of makes the focus more on the dialogue rather than kind of just you trying to fill your writing with like extra words. And, yeah. Oh, okay. Description. So one of the big things about description is that you don't want to over describe. You want to use loaded using too much loaded vocabulary will be powerful, but then at the same time it will often overdo it and make your writing boring. A big thing that we talk about is kind of varying your sentence structure. Having really long, detailed sentences one after the other will make your writing really hard to follow, and kind of, I guess people will get bored reading that. And I think what you can do is that you can use shorter sentences to kind of root people into your writing and make sure that they're still following along. And things don't always have to be super overcomplicated. A lot of things that I've done to improve my writing is to make it more to kind of like dumb it down per se, or make it more easy to understand for every reader. And another thing you can do is, yeah, to give enough descriptions so that the reader can orient themselves. You don't want to give too little descriptions so that they don't know where they are or what's going on, and they just have like one thing on their mind. So, yeah.
One thing Jennifer said there that I think was really important is that she talked about dumbing down her writing. And I think a lot of times when we write, we want to like sound smart. We want to show off like how our beautiful floral prose and everything. But one thing to remember is that most fiction, like fiction we read, is written at about a middle school reading level. So if you're writing at above a middle school reading level, you really have to ask yourself, who's your audience going to be? Like, who's going to read your writing?
Yeah, a lot of your writing isn't like research paper style. A lot of it's it depends on what audience you're aiming towards, but you definitely don't want to overdo it.
And that doesn't necessarily mean you can't have complex themes and things. That's mostly just the ease of how easy it is to understand the language you're using.
Okay, and finally we're going to talk about characterization. So I think that's one of the things people struggle with a lot when they're writing stories, is how to develop their characters. And for example, one of the common cliches that we had is this flawless character, where you kind of attach your character to yourself and you can't detach it, and you don't want to make anything bad happen to them. You want to make them kind of perfect and not and likable and just everything. But some of the best characters are well developed and show growth throughout the story. So some of the most liked characters are actually characters that might not be perfect in the beginning and kind of like, or might not be perfect at all, and kind of show that they're changing because of something, or that the plot has affected them. And I think that's really important to your characters. And we do want to mention that a lot of popular characters in lots of like stories and movies are a little bit flat, which is kind of interesting because they're more of supporting characters and they kind of add flavor to your main characters that are more developed. Yeah. Okay, and that's pretty much it.